Poker's legendary champions, next generation stars, and tireless ambassadors of the game, sharing their wisdom and guiding your journey to high achievement on the green felt. This is Chasing Poker Greatness with your host, Brad Wilson.
Well, hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Chasing Poker Greatness. I'm your host, the founder of EnhanceYourEdge.com, Brad Wilson, and today's guest is an absolute legend of the online game, John Apestyles Van Fleet. John is currently number 4 in lifetime online poker multi-table tournament winnings with a cool $15.8 million, with $5 million plus of that coming from a ridiculous 2-month venture playing 25K MTTs on GGPoker last November and December, which you are moments away from hearing all about. And not only has John been crushing tournaments for almost 2 decades, he is also as generous as they come when it comes to helping other folks out and sharing valuable information that probably isn't in his own best self-interest. When it comes to multi-table tournament coaches, you'll also be hard-pressed to find a better dude to help you ascend through the poker rankings than John. In our conversation, you'll also learn why structure is paramount to John's success in life, why the game of poker is an amazing example of a meritocracy that is more pure than almost any other life pursuit, how he uses Pio Solver to generate heuristics and find patterns he can actually execute as a human being at the poker tables, and so much more. So strap in, get ready to rock and roll and consume a plethora of greatness bombs from world-class tournament crusher John Apestyles Van Fleet. John, nice having you on the show. I appreciate your time and energy. How are we doing, sir?
I had a wild couple months in poker. So for the last 6 years or so, I had this kind of setup where I was going to coach during the week and just study with my friends and then play during series on the weekends and when I felt like it. And that pretty much resulted in me, well, for the most part, winning a lot and also having this variance-free income of coaching. And the coaching really developed my game. And then in October, there started to be these big tournaments on GG Network, these 25Ks. And they were soft. They were built around a couple whales and a couple VIPs. And I decided I wanted to give them a shot because I think that I don't think that many players have worked as hard as I have. So I sold a lot of my action. And, I think I had a total like 25% of myself. And in November, went on a huge upswing, like a $2 million upswing.
It's pretty good November.
25Ks. Yeah, it's the best month I've ever had. I mean, on paper, for me, I didn't actually make $2 million. I made, like $500,000. Then I'm like, okay, I'm giving away money here. I got to take more of myself. And then, in December, I went on the 1.5 million downswing. Yeah. And, it's really funny because with poker, I've managed to kind of cut out the emotional aspect for like as much as you can. So I really focus on mental game, just staying focused on decisions. When I have a bad day, I just look at my hands, move on, willing to try out new things. But man, for this kind of money, for the kind of money that I was playing for, I was starting to get tilted. I could tell that my emotions were affected. Now, on the good side, it did make me really, really study hard, like every single hand that I lost, because I was playing like 2 tables, and I'm not used to that.
You generally play more.
Yeah, for sure. So I had time to solve like every single hand that I lost on, and really pay attention to the ICM, the payout structures of those tournaments.
What does that process look like for solving a hand?
For a PO solver, like what I essentially do is I ask a specific question, like, oh, was this bet a good, was this bet a bet that the majority of my like that PO would take most of the time, or is this hand more efficient as a check? And then I'll put the bet sizes that were used in the hand to answer that question. But if I have another question that's like, what bet size is best on this street, I'll put in multiple bet sizes. And you have to make sure that you put in bet sizes other than the one that you used, so that you don't get like noise, like false information, because PO has to be able to make big raises, things like that. But mainly it's about asking objective questions and trying to get answers to those questions.
And when you're ranging, so like PO to me is a powerful yet very dangerous tool as far as software goes, because you make some false assumptions in a spot against a specific opponent. That's going, whatever answer you get, like you said, it's going to be a lot of noise, and the answer that it spits out is not going to be an optimal answer. So how do you navigate those waters of like determining a range and then node locking and moving forward from there?
Well, that's what people don't realize a lot of the times, is that any of these solvers are also exploitation machines, because when you reach an equilibrium point, you're actually maximally exploiting one another. So if you are to change any of the frequencies on either side, it'll exploit maximally for you there. So the problem that people have is just misinterpretation of PO. Like they want to play exactly like PO solver, when I'm looking for general heuristics. I'm looking for overall patterns that make sense to me, that I can translate into my human brain, and then try to execute a simplified version of those strategies. However, sometimes I'm just playing poker. Like what I mean by that is I don't discredit my 15 years of experience playing professionally, of hand reading in certain spots, and I don't forget that I'm playing against a human.
Absolutely.
So I think sometimes if you're really, getting too concerned with the minutia, like, oh, I should bet this hand 20% of the time and check 80%, and what should my bet size be, and blah, 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 blah. You're thinking too much about the wrong stuff. You got to think more about, that's important for sure, but I think it's more important to think about the composition of your range, the composition of your opponent's range, what's going to happen on future streets, what you expect to happen, what you want to happen, things like that. I think that sometimes people waste a lot of brain power on things like bet size on the flop, when you can simplify and
for sure,
have a couple bet sizes in any spot. Yeah,
for sure. And what you said is like straight in my wheelhouse. Don't forget you're playing against people. You're always playing against people, and that the human brain, you do have to simplify it, right? Like the human brain is not a solver, and people can be very predictable. So by leaning on that predictability, and like you said, there are some spots in these 25K tournaments, these guys are most likely going to be predictable, and that 15 years of experience will often lead you to excellent decision making compared to just plugging it into a solver and then going from there.
I'm actually not entirely sure that this is correct, but when I went on that $2 million upswing, and at that point in time, I was the third or second biggest winner in the 25Ks. I was kind of playing more my game, just my game, which is an exploit heavy game. And I got some feedback from a couple of my friends who were playing the games that they thought I was over aggressive in a few spots, because I'd shown down some goofy stuff. And
any example of a goofy showdown?
Check raise bluffing a river with the wrong combos in one spot, and like betting too much in blind versus blind scenarios where in limp pots, just because I think that even like really strong players have a tough time defending. There's a lot of spots where the population overfolds based on research that I've done, and the population of regs overfold. And those are spots that I attack pretty aggressively until somebody shows me I can't. So a lot of my over-aggressive play is what's got me where I am. But occasionally I get caught with my pants down and I look pretty dumb. But
that's the nature of the beast.
I stopped caring about that a long time ago, though. For me, it's also the process of becoming an expert is about making mistakes and learning from them. So if I'm like, I'm not sure if this is going to work, but if it's an aggressive action and I'm not 100% certain, I'm going to go for it most of the time, just because, I'm going to learn from it either way. And a lot of the times people make more mistakes versus aggressive actions. Now versus calls, I'm actually more likely to, if I'm not super sure, I'm just going to muck it because the population under bluffs, especially when it comes to rivers. But when it comes to, making a play that makes sense to me, even if I'm not super sure if it's part of my range, yeah, I go for it. And like I said, so after I got that feedback from my friends who were buying action off of me, I did start using a randomizer more and start to play a bit more how I knew that PO Solver played. And honestly, I think I was running really bad in December. I don't think that my play was a huge part of that downswing. It's a pretty normal downswing for that buy-in level. But it is kind of funny that as soon as I really started trying to play like more correct or PO Solver wise, I went on this big downswing.
That's pretty sick now that I think about it. Like 1.5 million downswing, that's 60 tournaments. How often are these 20Ks, 25Ks running on GGPoker? Like I'm in the States, so I'm out of it.
Well, there was a guy who he's not playing anymore, but who was down around like 15, 20 million. And the games were kind of built around him. He started getting better by the end though. But at one point when they were first firing off, there was a day when he put 16 entries into one tournament. And he was just,
I can't even do the math. It's too much. 250K, 400K.
Yeah, he had to get first to win. I mean, to get his money back. So they were just kind of built around him. And there were some days where like 20 ran in a day. It was basically the biggest sit and goes, like the sickest action other than like Macau at this point right now. They were just really big tournaments. And it took some adjusting, and I'm still not used to it. Like, oh, I just had a normal session, lost 10 buy-ins, 250K. Yeah, they were going for a while and they were really good at first. But the rake increased, and the guy who was dropping a lot of money, he still wasn't playing super good, but he wasn't just not caring. You could tell that he was trying. And some of the other players that made those tournaments worth playing stopped playing them. So they're, for now, I think they're gone, but they were pretty epic. And the other thing that was really, sorry, I'm just kind of rambling here, but the other thing that was really epic about these tournaments is that for a while they were like, for me, they were like 3 a.m. to like 3 p.m. or he would sometimes go for 18 hours. And man, that was really uncentering for me. I have to say, like those are the worst possible hours.
Yeah, me too.
And I think that actually kind of threw me off because, in the past I've had issues with alcohol and drugs, things like that. And I don't do that anymore at all. But it definitely felt like I was on drugs when I was staying up all night long, just drinking coffee, trying to play this guy. It felt like I was, I just did not feel like I usually feel. And so I think that might have contributed a little bit to, just being off balance playing those things. But it was wild for sure.
For sure. I mean, I've put my time in playing sessions until 5 or 6 in the morning and not going to sleep until the sun came up, and absolutely hated it. Like I just always feel like a zombie for at least a day afterwards. And so it's just not conducive for me to good play. Like I want to go to sleep, I want to wake up, and then I want to play my session, and then I want to go about my day. That's typically how my schedule is. I do want to go back though to something that you said about being aggressive, and that when given the choice to be more aggressive or less aggressive, you typically choose to be more aggressive if if your intuitions lead you down that direction, which is like right in my wheelhouse, right? Like this is something that I preach to, students, to my audience, to people all the time, is that you take these aggressive actions, instead of passing them up, you get the opportunity to learn something, right? Like maybe you learn an exploit against your population that not many people are taking advantage of, and it just prints. So like, take the aggressive action, and like, okay, sometimes you look like a freaking idiot and you splat on the pavement, and like that's part of poker and part of life. But like when you take these risks, you do learn, and that contributes to growth overall.
Absolutely. And that's kind of what I tell myself. I think that most, if not every expert in any field is someone who has tried a lot of things and failed and learned from those. So I'm still learning through trial and error, and there's nothing like, for me, I have that motivation that when I lose doing something like that, I really want to look at it, question my thought processes, see if they were valid or not, solve them, talk with friends about them. And sometimes they're not. sometimes I was way out of line, or I was thinking along the wrong lines. Like in the hand that I was talking about earlier in the 25K, the action went, I bet the flop, villain called, then the turn went check, check. And then on the river, I blocked the nuts and I check raised all in with a nut blocker. But the villain would have bet the turn with the nuts. So it would have been better for me to block. Like if I had rivered like a pair of some kind or bottom pair, those are the kinds of hands that want to check raise bluff, because generally,
what was the hand? What was the makeup of the board? Like what?
Well, this is in this case, it's actually overly general is okay.
Okay.
Just because the idea is that a lot of the times when you check raise or you raise rivers, blocking the nuts and blocking a pair, like doing both is what you want to do it with. Typically, your best bluff catchers are your best bluff raises, or pretty close, actually. And in this case, I was blocking the nuts, but when someone checks behind on the turn, they don't have the nuts very often.
Right.
So it's better to block the majority of their bet calling range, which would be like river 2 pair. Right.
That makes sense.
So yeah, the board itself, I actually don't remember exactly, but I think that in a general sense, that's going to be fairly true across most situations.
Also, in that spot too, on a checked through turn, a lot of times it's hard to get 2 bets on the river. So if you do have the nuts, then I would say typically it's a bet to prevent like a check back. So going for a check raise might be a little overly ambitious. But
yeah, I think that the idea is that check raise bluffs should be rivered, like a rivered bottom pair, which is like very rarely going to happen. So you don't that's going to randomize for you. For the most part, like you shouldn't really be doing a whole lot of river check raise bluffing. Although some players you can make, I mean, the population from what I've seen after betting the river folds to raises about 65 to 70% of the time, especially versus random accounts. So I do think there are a lot of opportunities for river bluff raises.
And this is your population, right? Like not a general.
This is reg population.
Reg population.
Just reg population in the big 109 actually is where I get this information. But that's
a pretty good price on a bluff.
Yeah, I mean, but the thing is, you have to get to the river somehow,
right, yeah.
So there is like you have to like usually have called a couple streets or whatever, right? Yeah.
So Why the decision to do more coaching versus playing? Was this, why consciously did you opt to go that route?
Honestly, I've been through a lot of ups and downs in my poker career, and a lot of them had to do with my issues with addiction. So I when Black Friday happened, I had quit everything, but then I don't know, going from country to country trying to figure out where I was going to live. There was a lot of uncertainty.
What was this like? Let's set the stage here. Like, so Black Friday happens, and it just, this is like the antagonist for the podcast, by the way. Like, I think this is like the main villain is Black Friday. Like, what was your bankroll like? What was your life situation before deciding on, what you're going to do, where you're going to move, and what the play is going to be?
I think I had not a whole lot. I think I had about like six figures to my name at that point, and I checked out Costa Rica first, and I went to a couple different places, and eventually ended up in Cabo with a bunch of my friends. And I didn't. What has helped me with the success in poker is having structure in my life, and I didn't have structure. And you can walk into the drugstores there and get anything you want. So I started taking a bunch of Adderall and taking a bunch of different drugs. And I kind of lost my mind while I was out there and blew my whole roll and then some. And essentially I went to, okay, this is actually, man, I hate telling this story because it makes me look like such a degen, but I've been staying up all night playing high stakes heads up singles, which aren't even my game. And I'd been up for a couple days, and my friends were like, they turned off the internet and took my computer. And I was like, hey, give me my computer back. And they were like, we'll give it back to you if you can tell us what day it is. And I got the month wrong. So I was playing super high stakes heads up sit and goes, just completely like insane. So in 2013, I decided to go to like a rehab treatment center, really reevaluate my life, got a lot of tools for that can actually translate to poker. I just got a lot of spiritual tools and worked on myself a lot.
Like
and
what?
Meditation for the most part. Also just really being congruent with like the person that I want to be and not being, also just trying to be as, just genuine, vulnerable, open, things like that. And I also felt a lot more connected to people. I love poker players, but they're all very, like they're all very analytical, and I felt from this experience that I had a place where I could connect with people on a different level and do service that way. So, for the last 6 years, I haven't drank or anything like that. And for the most part, my graph has been straight up and my life has been really, really good since then. But yeah, I've been my own worst enemy a lot of the times. And I've had a few of those punts actually on a couple of days and where I've just blown, a lot of my own money. And guys like me who have kind of those addictive personalities don't usually make it in poker. And the reason why I do make it, I've learned I have made it, is because I've set up a structure and a schedule, and I play that schedule and I study. Anyway, to answer your question, that was a very long answer to your question.
No, it's great.
To answer the question, when I got out of treatment, I actually didn't have very much money at all. None, really. I was broke, and I knew that I had a skill set. So, and it was going to take me a while. I owed my buddy Steven, or Stevie444, Steven Chidwick, a lot of money, but he wasn't pressed about it. He just wanted me to be good, to get better. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to plan my life around my coaching income, and whatever happens in poker happens. And I'm going to do my best to pay everyone back and just grind out of this. And I started off offering coaching at like $100 an hour because I wasn't really sure. My stock in the poker world had kind of plummeted. And then I started crushing everything. And then I became excited about poker again, excited about learning, and joined some study groups. And then from there, my coaching business kept building. I learned a lot about coaching, about how to teach, because that's a separate skill. And my poker results were just out of this world, more than I could have expected. So it was kind of a comeback story for me. But the lesson is really that the comeback only could happen if I had some discipline around my mental health, my physical health, and had balance in my life. And that is what I think was kind of missing when it came to playing these 25Ks and things like that. Maybe some people can do that, play super long sessions, stay up all night. But for me, I don't think it's a good idea.
Yeah. Some people can, back in 2007, when I was grinding mid-stakes cash games, I would berate myself for not being Nenonoko. Like, why is this dude playing 12 hours a day, 10 tables, and he can function like a normal human being, and I can only go for, a max of 6 hours at 6 tables. And I think, people are just built differently. And what you said is 100% accurate, that a lot of people who have these mental game issues, the gambling, and then pair that with addiction, no matter how good they are at poker. Like, your rock bottom is not, that's not representative of your poker playing ability, right? But I've seen the same story played over and over and over again with people, especially, one person that's very, very close to me, and they didn't make it. They're more talented poker player than me, and they couldn't break through the addiction, and then also some other mental game issues that, like you said, I've been the guy that's unplugged the computer and told somebody, "Hey, I'm going to grab this computer. I'm going to break it in the parking lot, or we can quit and we can go get some breakfast. We can talk, and then you can get your head screwed on right and play. But me breaking your computer is a plus EV play compared to what your current trajectory, right?"
Yeah, my jerk friends didn't when they did that. I mean, they were really trying to help me, but I was in the middle of a freaking huge pot anyway. No, but that's a good point what you're saying, and is that when it comes to betting on someone in poker, I would bet on somebody that is very nitty about their decisions, about where they decide to place their money and when they bet, how long their sessions are, over somebody who is reckless and has an enormous amount of skill. That person who's nitty, who's just making smart decisions, doesn't need to be that good. They just need to be better than their opponents.
Right. What do you think the cause was behind the self-destructive behavior? Have you? I'm sure you've thought about a root cause, and what do you think that was?
That's interesting. I think it's first of all, I have a compulsive and obsessive nature when it comes to certain things. Certain things can kind of hook me, right? And when they're positive, for instance, in the beginning with poker, I'd be lying if I said that I wasn't fully obsessed when I first started playing. And I think that actually was good for my career.
Absolutely.
Because it wasn't even hard to put in work. All I wanted to do was think about poker and get better. So I think that it has to do with being kind of a mental tunnel vision that I can get, and a compulsive nature. I'm not really sure if there's some self-destructive part of me that wants to just burn it all down, or if it's just if it is just having that nature, because everything I do either 100% or I just don't do it. So I think there's a lot of roots at it, but I think that when it comes down to it, I think that I just have addictive personality traits, and I have to work on managing them. Because actually, there were some regs that I made in these 25Ks recently on the way going down that I shouldn't have made, that I thought were reckless. And I actually put myself in a worse financial position than I've been in a long time. And I've been grinding my way up here, because even though I'm technically up $500,000 in these 25Ks, I had more of myself on the way down than the way up. So at some point, I probably should have just been like, you know what, these are too big, like, and they're not as good as they were. So I should just stop. But I was like, I could feel that I was in like a chasing mode. Right?
Yeah.
But no, I've definitely thought, I have lots of thoughts on what it is, but there isn't any real desire to just crash burn it all down. At least not on the surface, I don't think.
I don't think it's anybody's conscious desire to crash and burn, right? Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I think you spoke in the beginning of our conversation about like removing your emotions,
yes.
minimizing the emotional impact. And I spoke with Fedor Holtz, I don't know, a while ago. It's been like a month, 3 weeks or a month. But I spoke to Fedor, and actually, no, I think I heard in my research for Fedor, he was talking about removing the emotions and how that can be, in a way, removing the magic from poker. Because like part of the magic is, especially in the beginning, you make a big score and you're on cloud nine, right? It's euphoric, super pumped. And when you remove the emotions, you're targeting the negative emotions, right? Typically you're targeting the feelings of, self-hatred and all these other things. But what happens is you don't feel the highs and you don't feel the lows. Do you feel that like some of the magic of poker when you're minimizing your emotions goes away?
Maybe. But for me, it's the only way to manage. So I guess you could say that the magic came back for me recently. I was excited to play. I was just, because after winning like $2 million in 1 month, I was like, holy crap, this is easy, and I was just like, I'm gonna be like yacht money soon.
Yeah.
The rush of playing these was something that I hadn't felt in a long time. I don't
intoxicating,
don't really
almost, right? Like,
and the thing is, like maybe that was magic, but the truth is that I actually do try to cut that out. And of course, there's always a little part of me that's celebrating when I win and upset when I lose. But I try to just focus on decisions. And the magic to me is the beauty of the game. The outthinking someone, playing the puzzle, that's the magic. And the swings and the all in and like that, like the super intense highs and lows, like I'm trying to avoid, because that's the kind of stuff that gets me in trouble. So I don't know. I want to say that part of the reason why I think that I have such longevity, because not many people, that almost nobody that was around in online poker 15 years ago is still here and winning. And I think part of that is that the high of winning doesn't feel as bad, like as good as it feels bad when you lose. Right. So that overall, it kind of, the feedback is rough. Secondly, I actually do think that putting myself, I've kind of backed myself against the wall a couple times in my poker career. And I do think that that has forced me to stay hungry. And I think I do kind of like the challenge sometimes of battling back, because sometimes, when you're like, okay, when I get there, that's going to be so awesome. Then you get there and you're like,
yeah,
what do I do now? So it's kind of fun building back up again. And one of the things that's maybe not so good in my life, but I'm working on it, but good for my poker, I believe, is that I view money as ammo. I don't really view money so much as like when I play a 25K, I'm not like, okay, I just registered a car. I just registered the car, like I don't think like that. And I think that not putting a high value in money and not sweating money too much is useful. Don't get me wrong, like being broke sucks. But like for me, money doesn't, I have like a healthy lack of respect or maybe an unhealthy lack of respect for money. So
it comes with the territory, I think, as a poker player.
You kind of have to.
Yeah.
Lose your mind.
You're right, though. As far as longevity wise, there's not a ton of people that have been around since 2000, early 2000s that are still battling and playing on a regular basis. There is something. So I'm thinking back to an interview. I believe it was Tim Ferriss. He was interviewing a guy, and something that the guy did in college, and this ties into battling back from broke, is he went and lived in a tent in Europe and ate cans of beans. Like basically, and then he did odd jobs to exist, right? And like his thought process while he did that for like, I don't know, 3 months or 6 months was, if I lose everything, this is as bad as it can get, right? So he realized this is, and it wasn't that bad. And so when he realized that it wasn't that bad, that removed a lot of the fear that he had of taking risks in life. So like, this is it's kind of a hidden benefit to going broke or getting backed into a corner in poker. If you have people that believe in you, it also gives, empowers you to know like, okay, I'm going to be okay, even if the world burns down.
Absolutely. I think that's an amazing story. I love it. And it ties into, I'm not a religious person, but the philosophy and religion that I most identify with would be Buddhism. And Buddha was a beggar, right? He chose to not have any attachment to any items, and he lived as a beggar and lived a happy life that way. Right?
And as the story goes, he was super wealthy, right? And gave away all of his wealth. Yes,
he did. He kind of ran away and became like aesthetic for a little bit, and then eventually became enlightened under the Bodhi tree. But I don't know how much of that story is a tall tale and how much of it is truth, but I do find a lot of truth in the basic premises of Buddhism and non-attachment and just being very mindful and present in the moment. And that's what kind of helped me too, is that when I got out of treatment like 6 years ago, I was like, crap, man, like I'm broke as hell. Like, I don't know what to do, but you know what? I got a roof over my head. I have food and I have good people around me. And I don't need anything else. Right. So that's the other thing, is just realizing that I don't need too much to be happy. I need human connection, food, and a bed. Everything else is a bonus.
Everything else is a bonus. And all we have is the present moment. For somebody, like you, I think that chases that rabbit, that's leveling up and has internal goals that you're striving for. Like in the poker world, it's obvious. You start out at 100, you move up. If you're an MTT player, and eventually, the end goal is to play high rollers or whatever your end goal is, right? It's just easy to get lost in that chase and feel like you're a failure, even after having so much success that, people would dream to have, or poker players who are in a different spot would dream to have, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty stoked about my career. A little lack of humility moment. I believe, well, especially when I was up 2 million, I believe that I'm like literally the most profitable online tournament player of all time. I may not be anymore. Actually, probably not, because there was one guy that was up like 3.6 just in the 25Ks. But the point I'm trying to make is that, I having that perspective of being like, okay, like poor you. You're in this wonderful city, Vancouver. You've been able to not have a real job for 15 years. Life is actually just okay. Life is great, in fact. And I actually, to answer the second part of the question about the high rollers or being in the end boss, I guess that was kind of my goal. But then I realized, and the high rollers are a little too much like Fight Club. Everybody has their little groups where they're studying with each other. There's a lot of secrecy. Everyone is just like so focused in those at those levels. I believe that I have the skill set to beat high rollers. I think that I've actually proven that playing these 25Ks with one whale, and the rest are just the best players in the world. But I'm not sure that I want that for my life. I think the swings are insane, and I think that the traveling from country to country for me would be very, again, uncentering. I like to have roots.
Disruptive. Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, I think I found a thing that works. I believe that I've been lucky enough to have friends that, and a study routine that puts me at a level where I think I can play against anyone in the world. But my routine is just essentially coaching, working to get better, playing when I feel like it. And that is what ends up winning a lot for me.
What is up, my loyal Chasing Poker Greatness listener? Coach Brad here, and I just wanted to take a moment to ask you a simple question. How many times have you heard my guests and I speak passionately about the benefits of poker coaching? You get to expand your poker network, receive expert feedback you can rely on, and have your burning questions answered by a trusted mentor. Which brings me to the Poker Power Hour, a series of 100% free live 1-hour poker webinars, masterclasses, and hand history breakdowns that kick off each and every Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The Poker Power Hour will be led by me, Coach Brad, as well as some of your favorite Chasing Poker Greatness guests. It will be your weekly guide for helping you plug your leaks, skyrocket your poker growth, expand your network of crushers, and inevitably win more money on the green felt. The Poker Power Hour is premium content and live only. There will be no free replays or view on demand, and the content will eventually be released as paid training only. So head to enhanceyouredge.com, opt in to the Poker Power Hour, and get for free today what you'll have to pay for it later. Once again, to catch the Poker Power Hour every single week, head to enhanceyouredge.com and join the email newsletter. Now, back to the show. Okay, so for the audience listening at home, when you say you study your process for improving your game and talking to your friends, this is just a vitally important part of the process, getting good feedback that's trustworthy. If there's somebody out there that's looking for feedback on their game, what would you suggest they do to find a group that can help them just move up and up and up?
Well, you can go to my training site, www.max-value.com. And I would recommend the Blueprint course that I recently helped create. The idea of the course was that we simplified, for me, like 15 years of knowledge and putting together into very simple rules to be able to execute in poker. Now, the problem with any rule is that it's going to be overly general, but for the most part, the idea of the course is that you have about 80 and 90% of what you need to beat almost any level. So in that max value community, we have people who are helping each other with their game. I participate, etc. So that would be one thing. I mean, I'm definitely shilling for myself here.
No, it's fine. I mean, hey, everybody needs a way to think about poker and a process and these little heuristics, like you said. In a lot of cases, I think the heuristics, no offense, are a lot of bullshit. But in some cases, having a process to logically think through hands and put yourself in a position to make great decisions, I mean, that's kind of what poker is, right? That's at the heart of playing winning cards.
So yeah, basically, if you want to work with me and work with my community right now, maxvalue.com is a good place to start. The Elevate program is what I do. We have charts. We're all about goals, accountability, things like that. As far as like how I came up, honestly, I think that I got really lucky. I think that if you've ever read the book Outliers, it's kind of like the reason that I am where I am is because I came up during the boom. I met the best players in the game just randomly through online sites, and I had an upswing early. I also met another guy who showed me how to really treat the game like a job. And I had that community. But back then, people were way more open about sharing information. And there was a lot less known, right? It was really just about people were puzzling things together and figuring out, but there was nothing solved. Now the game's changed, but the game's harder in a way. And you can't really just figure it out on your own without using solvers and having a group of people around you. People are a lot more secretive about what they do because it's just the nature of everything. No one gives out information for free anymore. Yeah, everyone wants to keep their edge. And it goes against my philosophy. My whole life, I've just shared everything. And I kind of view myself as like this open node of communication. But the thing is, if I'm communicating, giving you information, you're giving me information, every direction, I'm still getting all this information.
Absolutely.
So for me, I'm not naturally going to be the kind of person that holds things back. It just isn't me. It's been a bummer because I've had an opportunity to join some study groups where there's actually some solvers that are not available to the public. But I'm like, the rule is like, you can't tell anyone who's even in the study group, you know? And I'm like,
Fight Club.
I'm just not like that. So
yeah, me neither.
It's just not who I want to be. I also don't really agree with the idea of like the privileged few keeping this information away from other people. I like the idea of if you are willing to work hard, you can get it, right?
Yeah, the ivory tower philosophy.
What is that?
It's just like the tower of knowledge. They're just hoarding everything for themselves instead of sharing it with anybody else. People may be surprised to hear that, you know, in high stakes poker on 2+2, I mean, Tom Dwan, like all those guys used to post on a regular basis and just ask and like give their thoughts. And, you know, it was an open conversation. I know 2+2 has changed a lot in the last decade, and your journey coming up through the game mirrors my own in a lot of ways. You know, I can remember like it was yesterday playing on Party Poker. I think it was 5-10 no limit and battling 3-handed and just like chatting. And one of the players, I get their AOL Instant Messenger. This dates it, right?
Me too. AIM.
Get their AIM information, and you know, it's Vanessa Selbst. But of course, like nobody knows. You know, she's not Vanessa Selbst at that time. She's just a player that I'm battling against. And like a lot of the crushers, you had access to them. You know, everybody wanted to learn. Everybody was friendly. It was a great community. And so, like you said, outliers. I do believe, and of course, I ran good in the beginning too. And in right place, right time to find success and be able to persist through the last 15 years or so.
I do think there was also the fact that it was the first time again for me that I had decided to quit drinking and doing everything. And I was in university with all this free time. And my friends, what they did, my other friends who didn't drink, they wanted to play poker on the weekends. And it just worked out. Plus, right before that, I was really into chess, and I learned how to study based on trying to get better at chess. So there were just a lot of things that just kind of fell into place. But now I really do believe that the game's tougher, and there's definitely some problems with that. But hard work is rewarded. You know, I wouldn't recommend anyone gets in the game now. But man, we have some people at Elevate who are like, you know, 40 and 50-year-old professors and people with regular jobs who are just good at working hard, who are just like crushing PO sims now. And it's like, it's really cool to see that if you're just willing to put in work, memorize ranges to some spots, just keep going back to your community, asking questions, posting, etc., you can compete at any level.
I agree 100%. And I actually disagree in the sense that I think you can enter poker nowadays and you can still find success. The barrier to entry is not so high that you're incapable of being successful. And I used to be a little bit more in line with you know, your thinking as far as like entering the game. But then like I've talked to Matt Staples, I've talked to a bunch of guys who are like entering poker in the last few years that are finding tons of success. And sometimes, they do it a little bit smarter than we probably did in the beginning, as far as like generating multiple streams of income, getting sponsorship deals with Stars or Party Poker or whatever, doing coaching on the side because it's this interesting trap that you fall into as a poker player, as far as like coaching people. It takes a lot of time, a lot of energy, and a lot of effort to do it. And if you're crushing the games, you may feel less inclined to do it. You'll minimize that responsibility and you'll focus more on playing. But like having that stream of income come in regardless of your poker results is just so huge for mental game. And like you said, when you're coaching people, it's a different skill set. You have to learn how to teach, and that is also extremely rewarding from the puzzle aspect of figuring things out.
Well, you also, all these darn students, they're always questioning everything I say. So I have to be able to back up what I say with either information, solvers, or solid logic.
Absolutely.
So having to do that has actually, I believe that teaching itself, the ability to teach what you're doing is a form of learning. And really what I'm doing when I'm coaching somebody, for sure it's about them and I'm trying to relate to them on their level and then bring them up. But a lot of the times when I'm working with a pro, it's basically just two pros collaborating together. So I feel like I get to study all the time doing this coaching, and I get paid for it, which is sweet. But yeah, again, bringing up the stupid 25Ks, when I was crushing them, I definitely was like, okay, coaching's off for a little bit. I'm sorry, everybody. But, for me, every single time that I tried to just do what I used to do, when I first came in, I was playing 50 to 80 hour weeks, right? It was no problem for me. But every time I try to do that, I'll be crushing playing on the weekends. I'll be like, why don't I just need to grind more. Every time I do that, I actually go on a downswing recently. So I just realized for me that it creates this balance. And every week I'm super excited to play because I have these new ideas that I've been working on, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, I think that having those, there is that whole idea that those that can't do teach. But for me, it actually, I think I can do pretty darn well.
I think that's a subjective saying that is not necessarily true.
Yeah.
I mean, you have your regimen, right? That makes sense. That keeps you grounded, keeps you happy, keeps you balanced in life. And it's always, I think it's human nature to test that routine, to sort of be like, oh, well, because of XYZ, I need to stop. I'm going to stay up all night and play these 25Ks, and I'm going to make $30 million next year, or whatever little narrative story goes on in your head. And for me, I'm like you. I'm always at my best when I have a routine, and when I deviate from that, it almost always ends in me getting crushed, me feeling down mentally. It's almost like I'm super strong now. I can handle it. I got the tools. I've put in the work. I can do this shit. I'm different from the way I used to be. And then everything goes to hell in a handbasket. And you're like, oh, I was only operating so well because of everything else. Yeah.
Yeah, I need that structure. I really do. And I think that also one thing that people forget, you don't want to make all your decisions in isolation. You don't want to, because a lot of the times your brain isn't, or my brain isn't always the most reliable character. So before playing certain events, before, deciding my schedule, what I'm going to do in my life, or even how I'm playing, collaboration is really important. And that's what coaching helps me with too. It helps keep me centered, helps keep me in the right frame of mind, running things past people. Really important both in life and when it comes to playing poker. And that's, one of the things that I think really kills people in poker is it's really tempting when you're grinding to just isolate yourself and grind all the time and play these weird hours. And
I don't think humans are meant. I don't think humans are meant for that type of isolation, right? And what's weird is there's some friction, at least in my case, for getting out of the isolation. like I get, before this interview, right, I feel some nervousness. I'm like, oh, like I got to do this interview. Is it going to be good? Like how am I going to facilitate a good thing that the audience enjoys, et cetera, et cetera? Like there's this self-doubt and this thought like, oh, it'd be easier if, we just didn't do it, yada, yada, yada. And then I get done and I feel like I'm on top of the world. Like I have so much energy. I feel so much happier, so much better when I'm interacting with human beings. And the same is true with coaching sessions. When I interact with my students versus, playing a 4-hour session or whatever it is, I feel so energized, like so much happier and in such a better headspace than I do just sitting in front of my computer playing cards. Whether I, even on days where, I win 10K, it's like, it feels good, but not as good as the interactions that I have with people, which is kind of a strange thing.
Yeah, actually, I for a little bit, I contemplated completely getting out of poker, playing, but not. And I contemplated it because I was like, it's pretty self-serving, and it's not like, yeah, maybe it's not the most helpful career and for other people. So I wanted to get into. I was thinking about doing addiction counseling for a little bit, and I worked at a treatment center, and you know what, that was cool and everything, but I'm kind of like you. I'm like an introverted extrovert where social situations occasionally are uncomfortable. Yeah. And I had to do all this. I had to manage all this conflict, and every single time I had to talk myself up like, okay, you got to go handle this. And it was way outside of my comfort zone. It was awesome. It was great, but I realized I really like poker.
Yeah.
I don't think I want to get paid for that, and it made me realize that, I've got something pretty cool going on here that I can utilize what I learned with addiction counseling as far as relating to somebody else and communicating with them in my coaching, and I can use that for my connection with my job, and then I can continue playing, and I can also do all that service stuff, but as a volunteer, not to get paid. Right?
And speaking of isolation, that thought, I used to think that I was the only person that felt that way as far as like not contributing to society, not helping people, poker being predatory and just taking money from people and like, what am I giving back? And all these existential crisis type questions. And then I did this podcast and this comes up with almost everybody that's been in the game for like a decade. They all seem to have these sort of existential thoughts as far as, is this really what I'm doing with my life? What service am I providing, et cetera, et cetera. So like even getting out of your isolation and having some vulnerability and talking to people about these sort of issues that you're dealing with, to know that you're not alone. I mean, that's powerful to know that you're not weak to think this as a human being, that this is a natural part of the process. That's very empowering. And I know, at least in my case, if I would have known that this is sort of common for people, professional poker players, it would have been a lot easier to get over it. And I would have gotten over it a lot quicker than I did.
I've definitely been in my head about that a lot. And that's kind of where I was at. But then I realized that there are actually some things about poker. Well, first of all, you can do stuff like this where you can be providing a service to other people. I think as long as you're ethical within poker, you're not cheating in any way, that you're respectful to other people, that there's nothing wrong with it at all. In fact, as far as like harming people goes, it's actually hard to not harm people in almost any industry.
Yeah.
Because in capitalism, there's essentially winners and losers. In any industry except for the helping industry is participating in harming other people in some way, shape, or form. And poker actually, in some ways, it's pretty cool because there's no real barrier to entry. It's like pure capitalism in a way, because if you start off and you work really hard, you should be able to climb to the top based on merit alone, not based on your upbringing, your race, etc. So in some ways, poker is really cool that way. And it also allows me to not participate in what I never wanted, which was a 9-to-5 job and all that kind of stuff. So doing a deep analysis of poker and, oh man, am I just like doing this super predatory thing that's not helping anyone, blah, blah, blah. I actually ended up coming out being like, you know what? I like what I do. And I think that the way, there's just some ways that I have to go about doing it. But yeah, poker actually came out looking pretty good when I really looked deep into it.
For sure. I'll never forget the moment. My mom was in the room. I was 22 years old, and my friend that was coming up in the game with said to my mom that, he said, Brad never has to work again. Like, Brad can play poker forever. He never has to work again. And I remember that thought of like, holy shit, I never have to work again. Like, thinking like, I might actually be able to escape this 9 to 5 thing that like I had no idea what I wanted to do anyway. And I was sort of just floating around, and I get to play a card game with my life like that. I remember that being very uplifting and a very freeing thought. And like, I think at some point when you do it for so long, you kind of forget, you kind of disconnect from like the real world and how other people have to go about their jobs and that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, like you said, every day I can wake up and be grateful that I had a dream that I was going to be a successful card player, a professional. People laughed at me when I told them, because back in 2002 or 2003, that was not a thing that, it's not even mainstream now, much less back then. But, I did that. I accomplished that. I'm proud of that. And I feel good coming back to the gratitude that like, yeah, I can play cards. I can help people. I can release my podcast. I can coach people. And that's a fulfilling mix for me. That's a balanced life as far as I'm concerned.
Even the guy that really helped me, like, he was a hardcore grinder, like a bonus kind of grinder, a bonus whore.
Yeah.
And, when I was like, I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna be those guys. Talking about being on the leaderboards and then playing in the big tournaments, he was like, I don't know, man. I don't know about doing that. Just, like, those guys are really good. And I hate to be this guy. I don't hate to be this guy, but you know what? Nothing inspires me more than somebody telling me I can't do something. So I appreciate that. Everyone that said, everyone that laughed at me and said like, no, keep your day job. I appreciate it. Thank you. Because it inspired me to actually prove them wrong. And if you have enough desire, if you have the passion to do something, I mean, on top of that passion, you need some structure. But if you have enough passion and you're willing to do anything it takes to get what you want within reason, you will succeed.
And that that doubt that is projected onto you is a reflection of how they feel, right? Like, it's never a reflection of you, your capabilities. It's a reflection of they don't think they're good enough to beat those guys. Therefore, they project and say, you're not able to. Like, that's sort of the human psychology behind it. So like, don't get discouraged, for the people listening, when people tell you you can't do it or it's not possible, etc. That's just other people's doubt projected onto you.
It is kind of funny. So yeah, I agree. That people are projecting their fears onto you, and they think they're helping you out by giving you a safer, less dangerous course of action, because they can see all kinds of ways they can go disastrously for you. And to be fair, there are lots of ways that it can go disastrously.
For sure.
And so I'm not. I have nothing but, I'm not trying to hate on the people that were saying things like that. They were just trying to help. They're projecting their fears.
Well, you have to not be delusional too. Like, you have to have you have to have clarity on your actual ability and your actual skill level and your actual desire. Like, are you putting in the 60 to 80 hours? Are you working to improve? Do you have a community? These things need to be in place. I don't want to like give off the perception that like just anybody that saying, no, I don't think you can do this across the board is bad. But for some people that are capable, that can do it, it could be bad.
Well, yeah, I actually think, and that's again coming back to max value. That's what I think is actually the predictor of poker success. You got that passion and that drive, and a lot of people have that, but they can use that just gambling their life away or whatever. What you need to do is you need to put a system and structure into your learning and your playing schedule and what you're playing. And that's hard to do because poker doesn't impose any system on you. There's no schedule. You can just play whenever you want to. So there's this weird balance you have to have of, being able to gamble, not care about money, but also having a system in place, having discipline, and using your passion to get better all the time. That's what's going to give you success in poker, I believe.
As a coach, I have a weird question. Has somebody ever come to you with sort of outsized dreams or expectations, and you've told them no, like basically give up on poker, or it's just not going to happen?
Yeah, I've also turned away a couple of students. I'm not gonna, of course, I won't name names. But there was a guy where he just wasn't improving. He kept coming back to me with the same mistakes every time. And in that case, I did say, I don't know what I can do for you. You're not grasping what I'm asking you to do. I don't think that this career is good for you. I think that there are a lot of people that poker isn't going to be the best career for. You need a lot of conflicting traits, to be honest. You need to be able to not care about money, but also not be crazy with your money and in your regular life. You have to be able to play kind of weird hours sometimes, but also have discipline within your life. I think that there are a lot of you have to have conflicting abilities.
It's hard to put together a recipe for what makes an elite poker player, right? It's very difficult.
Well, I'll give you an example. BBZ, this guy has, millions and is such a nit with money. He's not like he'll pay the bill. He's not like that. He's just like, for himself, he won't purchase an app or anything like that. He's just very, very frugal with his money. And for me, that's hard to believe because I'm like, an app, I'm like, oh, that's like the $55 turn. That's like a $5 rake, whatever. I'll pay that. Sure. I have a hard time with that. But for him, he's managed to see the value of money and only make good investments when he's playing, but also not get too sweaty, not get too upset about like minus 20K days, minus 50K days. That's hard to do.
It's hard to compartmentalize the different things. And the thing is, like, you have a minus 20K day in poker, you had a chance, right? Like that's always the thing that I tell myself. You have a bad day. I had a chance at least to win money. If I were to go and blow 10K on a car, I had no chance, or 20K or whatever it is. Like, the money's just going to be devalued. So like always keeping that in mind. Like Elliot Rose says, you are the casino. It's like, make good decisions. You will make money over time. So like, that's sort of the story that I tell myself on those bad days is like, okay, you had a bad day, you lost a lot of money, but you had a chance, right? You had a chance to win more. It just didn't work out, and we move on until tomorrow.
You were making plus EV registrations that make you money in the long run. You got all the Sklansky bucks. And in a way, you kind of have to lose those to win, because you have to keep playing, and then eventually you will go on your upswing.
It's just,
so yeah, he's got like such a cheap car. I mean, it's not a cheap car, but it's like, he can afford, like, he can afford to live like a baller, but he doesn't do any of that. And I really respect that. Because when I first started making money, like I thought I was like a rapper for a little bit.
Yeah, people look down on like, you see the same story a lot of times. People go broke. Like, a poker player goes broke, and everybody thinks that reflects on their direct skill at poker, when that can be absolutely not the case. They could just be very bad with life and money in general.
Yeah, that now over time I've learned my lessons, but yeah, I've definitely, in my 15 years, been close to broke, I think. like 3 times, mainly in the beginning. Like ever since this last upswing, I've been doing pretty well in my life, and the coaching helps with that. But yeah, again, just being responsible. It's boring. I remember when I watched the main event, and I think Moneymaker, they asked him what he was going to do with his money, and he was like, "I'm just going to go back to work." And I was like, at that point in time, I was like, boring. Give me that money. I'll show you how to spend it.
He didn't know. He said that, but he ended up not doing that.
True. I mean, it may not have even been Moneymaker. It might have been Raymer, but someone said that. And I just remember thinking, no way. But when I had $1 million score recently, I didn't touch it. I actually was just like, you know what? And I coached the next day because I was like, I'm just going to keep doing what works.
How much of that was you? Did you have?
65%.
It's a good day. Yeah. It's an okay day.
Yeah, not bad.
No friction in going to coach the next day for however much it was?
No, it was fine to coach the next day because I just was – it kind of blew my mind. I was just like, oh, I just did that. Okay. I didn't want to make the mistakes that I'd previously made, which were if you make $100,000 in a year in poker, you should treat it like you have like a $30,000 or $40,000 a year job, because nothing is guaranteed in the next year or two, right? So, honestly, the best way to play is to, live within your means. And I also just realized I like my life. I don't need to change it too much. I mean, maybe I could upgrade the vehicle a little bit, but this and that. But if I want something, I get it. I eat good. I don't need to be living all bougie. So I didn't really I didn't change anything because I was like, this is what got me here. So I'm just going to keep doing that.
It's a sign of maturity too, right? Like you understand yourself better and what's not going to make you happy and what's going to make you happy.
God damn, I'm like an old man now.
We all are. Don't I remember going to casino and like being the youngest kid there 98% of the time. And I've played in some games in Vegas where I'm the oldest person there. And it's like, what happened to my life?
Yeah. It's funny though. Cause like I'm like a big bearded dude. So, like I look like a fish. So if people don't know who I am, sometimes if I'm at a table with nobody knows me, I'll do something like 7X with jacks, and then like everyone will fold, and I'll show them and be like, "I hate fish hooks." And it's funny because like in Montreal, there's a big game that runs. It's super political to get in, and this guy just assumed I was a fish because the way I looked or whatever, and they let me play in their big game. And then I had a couple big days, and he Googled me and was like, "You are no longer welcome here." But anyway.
At least you had a couple good days. At least you ran good when it mattered.
Well, yeah. Actually, he let me stay there while I was losing. And then I had a couple big days, and he Googled me and was like, oh. Yeah,
yeah, of course they let you stay there when you're losing. That's hilarious, though. You're incognito crusher.
Yeah, and I actually am older than. I mean, I've always been older than the majority of online players because I was like 24 when I started.
Yeah,
and so like all my friends have always been a little bit younger than me. There was a point in time when there were a lot of 18-year-olds in the game. It's not like that anymore. A lot of those guys have grown, but I'm still older than my peers for sure. Yeah, like
so you're like 40 now.
38.
38.
Yeah.
I'm 36.
Okay, old men unite.
Old men unite. Good thing poker is not like an athletic career. We still cognitively. I hope you still got it for sure. It's up in the air whether or not I still got it. But
I don't know, buddy. I burned some brain cells, but I read that recently we found out that they grow back. So I am hoping.
That's a close call. When we were growing up, back when we were like 15, they said they never came back. So lucky us.
Yep.
Dodged a bullet.
Neuroplasticity.
Neuroplasticity.
But I now like, it's funny because I remember a lot of people back in the day were like, oh, I'm not going to play poker for the rest of my life. And, now I'm actually pretty comfortable with the idea. I would love to be like, yeah, I've been in this game for 30 years and I'm still crushing these young whippersnappers.
I told my wife, like, no matter what happens, do not put anything poker related on my epitaph. Like, nothing on my tombstone poker related. I think that's where I draw the line.
No way. I'm not like, I have like some tattoos. I'm not going to get a poker tattoo. And
John Apestyles Van Fleet, just right there.
Apestyles across my stomach, right next to where it says Thug Life. Yeah, I know. So like, one of my least favorite things in the world is when somebody who knows I play poker tries to relate to me using like a really terrible poker analogy. Like when they're like, okay, how can I put this to you? Let's say you got the aces. And I'm like, I'm going to stop you right now, man. Like, please talk to me in any way other than that, please.
Yeah.
I mean, now there are, like, if you're a poker player, you can make funny poker analogies, but not like an outside player doing that now.
Yeah, you got to be in there. And never, ever, ever invite somebody that's really good at poker to like a very small home game thinking that they're going to care at all. Like those are the most fun games to punt, and absolutely zero thought process.
I have to admit, I'm just that guy. I say no. I just don't go because it's a lose-lose. Because
it's more like it springs up around you, like you're somewhere and then they're like, let's play poker. I bet I can beat Brad. And then they just find, the chips manifest, come out of thin air. And all of a sudden we're playing poker.
No, I mean, I've had that happen for sure. I remember it's like, they're like, we got this great idea. We're going to play poker. And I'm like, like my face fell, just like, that's like, telling a carpenter, I got this great idea tonight. We're going to,
build some shit.
Build a shed. For me, it's just like, okay, if I win, it's like not very much money. And my friends are like, the pro took the money, And if I lose, they're like, we took that pro. I could beat that guy, But so that's actually what I guess I do if I play those super low games. Back in the day, if I played them, I would just kind of not care at all. But I've trained myself to where I can't not care. Actually,
really,
I have to just play good all the time, or play the best I can. I can play a little bit more aggressively at the end of the session when I'm like one tabling, but I have to try to play the best of my abilities, no matter what.
I can throw the game. I can throw it. And as I've gotten more mature too, I've learned, like you said, your friends are happy when they beat you, right? I've learned that. And this is through children, letting my children beat me at things sometimes is like they feel so much happiness and joy and a sense of accomplishment that kind of makes me happy too. So yeah, just whatever, give it to people, give them that little bit of self-confidence that they crushed you or crushed me anyway.
Man, I am such a competitive person. If I had a kid, I'm not sure I could let them beat me.
You know what? I'm going to call that bluff. I'm going to call that bluff because you can only beat your kid so many times at tic-tac-toe before it's like, okay, let's give them a little hope here. Let's give them an opening to take advantage of.
Okay, fair. You know what? Like, I take it back. I'm pretty sure that I could do that. I used to say that I couldn't, but no. I think that I would for sure throw the game for a kid to let them have that feeling of winning. What kind of like it's just constantly crushing your kid at tic-tac-toe over and over again.
It's almost sociopathic. I played a friend of mine who's like, he's sick at chess. Like I'm not a chess player, and checkers too. I didn't realize there was so much skill in checkers till I played him. And he literally beat me like 50 times in a row at an airport and was like happy as a pig in shit to queue up for 51. I had one move where I had more checkers than him, in those entire 50 games, one play. Like, and he was just so happy to crush me, probably forever. He could have beat me 1,000 times, I think, and would have had joy from it.
I relate, to be honest. But so like when I play someone at chess, like I'm like probably around like 2,000 rated, which is like, you know, like 200 points less than a master, like a weak master. But yeah, when I play most people, like I just don't have any challenge, and that's actually not fun for me. So I'm like, hey, do you mind if I kind of tell you what you're doing wrong so I can like, which is super annoying for them, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I try to do like, I try to help them though, at least, and let them know what I'm doing. Not enough to where they're going to ever beat me, but just like enough to where like, I feel like it's not just me like stomping on someone over and over again. But yeah,
if you're crushing somebody and you give them some feedback that directly relates to them beating you, you are the best coach in the world. Like, your coaching skills are off the charts.
I think I actually have done that before. I made with my buddies, because I wanted some chess action. I told anyone that if they can beat me at chess, I'll give them $500 to a charity of their choice. And I actually did. This guy freaking finally beat me. He took me up on it. He just played me like every day. And he eventually got me. And I kind of did give him some hints in that game. But he got me fair and square. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. But yeah, I got. But yeah, you know, I'm not sure how good that competitive nature is when it comes to a spiritual level, like, because there's ego. It's nothing but ego. But that desire to be better, to succeed, and to be quite frankly, like to crush other people is probably not healthy. And I don't feel like I exhibit that in my regular life. But yeah, for some reason, when it comes to poker and chess, I get pretty ruthless. Yeah.
I can say that I have matured over the years, and you're right, it's purely ego driven. I told this story, I believe, can't remember if I was on another podcast or my own, but that friend of mine that I grew up with, that, you know, we pushed each other to improve. I remember a specific night where he was cash poor and went broke at a casino, and I let him borrow $1,000, and we were playing in the same cash game against each other. And I ran a massive bluff against him specifically because I knew he only had $1,000 and couldn't reload and wouldn't want to be in a big spot against me, who is one of the stronger players at the table. And the shameful part about the whole thing, I can't even say it. It's hard for me to even say. I showed him the bluff. Like I couldn't stop myself from showing him the bluff to like max torture, and he just snapped, got up. Like, oh, it was bad.
Wow. I would have been mad at you. For sure.
I'm mad at myself thinking back on it. Like, that is just next level. Oh, douchebaggery. It's just not good.
But you know, what else can you do? Like, I made a lot of friends in the poker world, so I'm playing against them all the time. I'm not going to soft play them.
Yeah,
you know?
For sure. Of course not.
And if I have some extra information about where they're at or whatever, I'm going to use that. And I actually tell when I'm coaching a high stakes player, I'm like, your information is safe with me. I'm not going to tell anybody else. But I promise you, if I'm playing you and I know something about your game, I'm going to use it. I'm sorry.
How could you not? Like, you're just going to selectively forget stuff? I mean...
Yeah, I'm going to make... Because see, what's the other option? Soft playing? That's unethical, right?
Yeah.
So making the best move that you know that you can make at any given time is the right play, right? So...
I didn't have to show him.
You did.
I didn't have to show him.
But you know what? If it caused him to get up from the table at that point, maybe it was a good thing for him.
It was a good thing for me because the game got better temporarily. Not a good thing for my friendship, though.
Oh yeah, I bet not. But you know what, man? Like, it's a cutthroat game, and at the table, you kind of have to be a killer.
I was definitely a killer in my 20s. I wouldn't do that today, though. I have to say, I wouldn't go for the jugular. I would probably put a lot of pressure on them, but I wouldn't show them just to tilt them and make them leave. I think that's the point to where it got a little out of control for me.
Yeah, the show was unnecessary, but the bluff was not.
Yeah.
I've actually, like, in live poker, occasionally felt like I lacked the killer instinct a little bit, that I just have. And I think that part of that is, like, I remember one time there was this sweet little lady at the table, and her whole family was cheering her on. And I was like, man, this woman must be like awesome for her whole family to be standing and watching her play poker. Because poker for me, even sitting down playing, is kind of boring. So, I mean, if they're all standing there watching her, I mean, wow, and she was so nice, but she was terrible. And just limping every hand. And there were a couple spots where I totally should have ISO'd her with like ace rag, and and she was super transparent, where I just was like, I can't. I'm gonna let her. And I was talking with her and having a good time with her, and I actually felt really crappy after that at first, because I was like, wow, I just was unprofessional there and let her, didn't totally attack her, which I could have, because we were having this friendly conversation and she would have believed me and whatever. But, later on that day, she came up to me. I saw her and I was like, are you still in? And she was like, no, but I just wanted to thank you, because I was super scared to be playing with all those men and in that big buy-in tournament. And I had such a good time talking to you and playing. It was all worth it. And I don't know, that made me feel better, because I was like, you know what, there were a couple plus EV spots I missed. So I don't know. I still think, going back in time, that I probably should have just made the professional play and pounced on her, but I couldn't.
I'll disagree. I'm softer than you. I'm softer than you want to be, because you were soft there. But, like, I think that there is value in, she had a good time, and there is value in helping people with their experience. You did give up some EV, so it's like this trade-off. So I do say that, you were serving somebody else, and there is something to be said for that.
Yeah, you know what? Actually, this is something that I don't do, but I do think is important. And all these freaking high roller players that take years just staring at each other need to get, like, stop. Because part of your job as a live poker player, especially if you're on TV and things like that, is to entertain the recreational players, entertain people who are watching. And gosh, I mean, the poker is good, but so slow. They're all so slow, and they don't say anything. And if they do say something, it's like hyper intellectual. And like, I do think that a small part of your job, if you're a live poker professional, is to keep the whales entertained in there.
I'll go above. And so I'm a cash game player. I don't play many tournaments. And I think cash game players intuitively understand this better than tournament players, live tournament players, is that I don't think it's a small part of your job. I think it's a large part of your job to be entertaining to the folks that you're battling against, so that they have a great experience and they want to come back. I mean, they tell other people, like, it's just part of the gig, not sitting there like a wooden statue in the one seat with your headphones on and a hoodie and never interacting and making the experience super boring and intimidating. Like, you want to make people laugh. You want to create a good game, because that's just good for business and the longevity of poker.
Mm-hmm. I remember I had a very clear moment where I was looking at, like, the 2500 six max table, and it was just like a whole bunch of kids with headphones on doing chip tricks, not talking to each other. And then
Right.
it was going on during the same time as, like, this, like, limit Omaha 8 tournament or something. And it was just, like, loud. People were drinking. It was just, like, all for sure on non-professional players for the most part. And I was like, I feel like there's a reason why, because it didn't used to be quite like that. It used to be, I think that, like, all these, you don't want to lose to some, like, quiet, like snotty kid. You know what I mean? Like just it feels intimidating to be at those tables, and also all the bum hunting that goes on online. I mean, I guess there's no other way to do it, but I'm sure it doesn't feel good to feel like I am the prey here, and they are all just coming after me.
It can't feel good. It can't feel good, and like there is no easy solution to that. It's time for Balanced Ranges, the game where you get to decide whether my Chasing Poker Greatness guest is bluffing or telling the truth. Here's how it works. I'm going to ask them 10 rapid-fire questions, and they can either A, tell the truth, or B, try to run a bluff. If they fool you with a bluff, they get 3 points. If you think they're bluffing and they're really telling the truth, they get 2 points. And if you read them like a book, they get bupkis. 24 hours after each new episode releases, I'll be dropping Twitter polls where you get to cast your vote. Simply follow @EnhanceYourEdge to join the fun. One more time, that's @EnhanceYourEdge on Twitter. And now, Balanced Ranges. All right. You ready for the Balanced Ranges?
I'm ready. Let's go.
Invisibility or super strength?
Invisibility.
Your last Halloween costume?
I'm trying to think of when I actually dressed up in a costume. Oh yeah, I was like Chiquita Banana.
A Chiquita
big
Banana
fruit thing on my head and some coconut shells. Yeah.
Have you cried in the last 6 months?
Only at romantic comedies.
So no, have there been romantic comedies that came out in the last 6 months? I can't think.
No, actually, I'm gonna change that. It's just occasionally a movie will get me teary-eyed a little bit, but not too much crying.
Okay, not too much crying. Favorite childhood TV show?
Dukes of Hazzard.
How old are you? What's the fastest speed you've ever driven in a car?
I think we got past 200 one time.
200 plus. Have you ever worn socks with sandals?
No.
Favorite ice cream flavor?
I'm going to say Rocky Road.
I'm going to say, is that a tell? Scale of 1 to 10, how good are you at wiffle ball?
Are we talking about wiffle ball like regular rules?
Yeah, regular rules wiffle ball.
I'll give myself an 8. I'll give myself an 8.
What type of milk do you put in your cereal?
2%.
How many pull-ups can you do in a row?
Not sure if I can even do one.
All right, there you go. So I've taken us off course, I think, or maybe we're on course, but I haven't gotten around to the lightning round. We probably ought to jump into the lightning round before this turns into a 5-hour epic thing, because I could honestly talk about stuff like this forever. I do love talking about it. It's a joy to me.
Yeah, I'm a rambly mofo. So yeah, I like to talk about stuff too. I love talking. Actually, as a coach, what I've had to learn to do is streamline a little bit, be more efficient with how I teach. Because occasionally I will go off a little bit too much into the minor details.
Yeah.
And that's unnecessary a lot of the times. You need to get across the major points, move on to the next thing.
I equate it to my students as they're trying to drink water from a fire hose sometimes, because it's just get on one tangent. And, the reality is you have an hour together typically, or sometimes it goes over, but typically an hour. And that 1 hour can be very concentrated on like one hand or one spot if you're not careful. And
I've had that happen.
Yeah, me too.
I try to pick 2 topics and go super deep into them a lot of the times. I find like I'll do a database review, find 2 leaks, and then go really into those.
Yeah.
Then write up a report on those leaks, give an assignment, come back to it, check in with it, and then do new topics the next week. That's why I try to have structure within my coaching, and
give them a recording too, so they can go back and watch it. I think it's very beneficial.
And the blueprint course that we just made is really about the main points, like essentially the idea of the course is that we would give rules that were at least like 80 to 90% true, because essentially the way that Rob described it, there's actually like they did a study where they gave sports betting experts 4 pieces of information of their choice and got the results from that. And the sports betting experts did better than, they did better than breaking even. I don't know. They did better than they're supposed to, of course. And then they did a second version of this where they were given 8 pieces of information or something like that. I could be totally quoting this wrong, but the point remains the same, and the results didn't change.
Right.
So the fundamentals are what are most important, and that's what we tried to boil down the blueprint course to being. And then you join Elevate for the specifics and for when to deviate from the rules. But you have to know the rules before you can break the rules.
Exactly. And at some point, there's just diminishing returns. Like on the information that you're using, you reach the diminishing returns, and it's not valuable anymore, for those sports bettors to have 20 pieces of information versus the original 4.
Totally. Everyone always wants to talk about river calls, and it's like, man, like the nature of them is that they're indifferent, and yeah, they're interesting because you have to look back through the hand and all that, but really just evaluate your blockers and like it's not, those hands don't come up as much as like what your 3-bet range looks like, what your reshove range looks like the spots that come up all the time. If you're doing those wrong, those are going to add up, And
Exactly.
Everyone always wants to like go into like the minutia of the river spots because they feel those are the painful ones where you're like, do I call? Do I fold? I don't know. That's emotional though. That's not.
And they're big. They're
matter. Yes,
by nature, they're bigger pots than 3-betting somebody pre. But like from a frequency standpoint, always work on the high frequency spots that come up over and over and over again. That's going to give you the benefit, or that's going to give you the rewards and maximize your time and your energy that you're investing in is studying. And a lot of times the river spots just kind of intuitively make sense because you have a lot of different pieces of the puzzle that you're putting together.
So lightning rounds. Let's do
lightning round. Okay. When you think about joy in your career helping poker players, what's the first memory that comes to mind?
Honestly, it's there have been so many that just whenever someone just comes back and is like, yeah, I used this here and I just won this. And that happens quite a lot. The only problem is sometimes I've actually like, I helped a couple guys get up in the game and then they bust me from like really high buy-in tournaments. And I'm like, no, there's it's really just when students come back, there's an overall feeling of satisfaction and joy. There's not like one super proud moment. And the reason why that is because I can't ever really take full credit for anyone's win or big moment. It is really cool. Like sometimes with poker, there's this thing that happens where, if your friends are winning, you feel like actually kind of crappy. But there are some guys that I came up with who I always feel good when they're crushing. And, for a long time, Stephen Chidwick was like my best friend, and same, it was really Elio and a few of these guys. I get really stoked when those guys win just because we've shared so much with each other, and we came up together, and it's cool to know that, I'm out here holding the online game down and they're out there crushing the high rollers.
It's the way to be supportive of your friends, and all that stuff comes back tenfold, especially in times of struggle, right? Like something happens and these relationships are super valuable. It's just always better to root for your friends and the people that you care about, I think, in any endeavor.
Yeah. The only thing is sometimes it does hurt when like right next to you, your buddy's crushing and like you're like just dwindling your role where, worried about what's going to happen next. And it's not that you don't want your friend to win, but I've been in a spot where it's a reflection on where I'm at.
Right.
And so I get that, but it's totally better to just live vicariously and just root your friends on and be stoked for them.
For sure.
You don't want to be a bitter Betty.
And going back to what you said about not taking credit for your students, I think as a coach, the coach is the guide, the student is the hero. in that journey. So you're absolutely right. Like just guiding people to do their best, and then that's their success, right? They earned it.
I also have another answer to that now that I think about it, though.
Okay.
Being the head coach at Pokar, and being the one that brought in PO Solver and brought in Munker and brought in the way I look at the game to the stable, just seeing them all talk in my language is cool. And seeing one guy talk to another guy using the like terminology that I use that I believe came from me makes me that's cool to see for me. Seeing that I have that kind of impact that gets spread down. But then there's that freaking flip side where I'm like, damn it, I'm making the game tougher.
I mean, it's going to get tougher, I think, whether we go for it or not. Whether we share our wisdom, it's still going to get tougher. That's just the nature of poker.
Super weird. Like I'll discover something or think I discovered something and I'll start implementing it and teach a few people. And then I'll see other people doing it who I didn't teach. And I'm like, what's going on here? Like, is this, am I having a direct influence on the game? But actually what I think happens is, calculus was discovered by two people at the same time. So I think that people are going to learn people are going to learn the same things with different processes using the tools that we're using. Especially
in a data-driven game like poker where people can get your data and they can start analyzing and seeing what it is that you're doing, especially if you're successful and crushing.
Yeah, I've wondered if it is me having a direct effect sometimes, but I don't want to. I think that's probably a little bit too big.
Too egocentric.
Yeah. But,
it's definitely possible, though. It's not. It's not a 0% that because especially like you said, you're going straight up, right? When you're crushing it, people want to emulate and model and see what's this guy doing differently that I can implement into my game. So it's not a stretch to say that. People can be data mining, they can be downloading and analyzing.
For sure.
When you think about pain in your poker career, what's the first memory that comes to mind?
Yeah, way back in the day when I had done what I'd done, which is staying up, taking Adderall, and because I thought it would help my game, but I actually ended up just playing these super long sessions. And then realizing that I'd borrowed more money than I had and then waking up like, what am I going to do? And I felt that was a really bad spot for me to be in.
What was the thoughts going on in your mind in that time?
A part of me wanted to just kind of escape from it. Another part of me was just like, thinking about what I needed to sell, like what, but it was just a lot of, I had, I should have used this one, but there's another one too. But they're both very similar. Maybe you can edit out the last bit. I don't know.
Sure.
But when I was drinking and playing, I got blackout drunk one time, and I had 80,000 in my full tilt account. And the next morning, I woke up and I went to go look at my play poker or whatever, play the tournament schedule, and I had $0 in my full tilt account. And I'm like, oh crap, I've been hacked. But then I loaded my hand histories into Poker Tracker, and I had played 100, 200 against one of the biggest winners on full tilt, and called down with bottom pair and a huge 3-bet pot. Just, 0% chance of winning in this matchup. And I quit drinking after that for a good bit, at least. It felt miserable, especially being hungover on top of everything, and just oh man, I just felt really, really stupid, and I didn't know what I was going to do next. Lost in poker. Yeah, that was probably the most painful.
How'd you get out of that? Just work?
Again, just getting clean, getting sober, and focusing on the things I could control, working out, just putting my effort toward being a better poker player, and just not thinking about what I can't change, just moving forward. And, luckily I came back from that and then some. That was 2008.
Yeah.
So, yeah. at that point in time, it felt like the world had come, where it was collapsing around me, and I was totally screwed because that was pretty much everything for me. It was at that point in time, and it was just hard not to beat myself up and just be like, you were such an idiot. Like, what were you doing? But yeah, that's always been the thing, though. Like, those little moments have kind of sharpened me as a human being, because I have that choice of either laying down and quitting or doing whatever, or being like, okay, it's time to get your shit together and time to start focusing on just optimizing yourself, being a better person, being more healthy, and studying.
Yeah, you don't make it in this game for 15 years by not being resilient in the face of, massive adversity. Sometimes self-induced massive adversity like that, but you have to be resilient, right? Like, that's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to be like me. Please don't. I mean, some are just sicker than others. But
I'm not saying that that's a positive experience for you by any stretch, but it's just like, even without getting blackout drunk and busting your account, things happen in poker that require you to get back up. Like, it will kick your ass no matter who you are. That's just the nature. So you have to have this built-in resilience to be successful over a long period of time.
Absolutely. Maybe I am also like a little bit masochistic. I'm just a glutton for punishment. I don't know, but like, you absolutely do have to be able to reset yourself and be like, that happened. I can either dwell in it and be like, oh, that guy's such an idiot, blah, blah, whatever, like during the day, or you can go back to playing your best game, focusing on decisions, just moving forward one step at a time, living in the moment.
Yep, absolutely. Imagine there's a carbon copy of yourself, 21 years old, who's getting into poker. If you could sit that kid down, give him some advice, what would it be?
Stop playing the 25Ks in December. I'm not sure 21-year-old me was listening to anybody, but like, not too much, because I like where I'm at as a human being right now. And they would actually be tips about being myself, about being okay with being an open book, and how that's actually served me in my life. Because there's a point in time when I was very closed off and not like that, right? There's a lot of advice I give myself about how to handle adversity and how to conduct myself in the world that I didn't used to have. As far as avoiding those stupid spots where I'd be so much richer if I didn't just punt money like 4 times. But I'm not even sure that I could have avoided those spots, because or
that you would even want to. It's
because I learned each time from them, right?
That's the messed up thing about we don't know what would have happened on any different trajectory other than the one that got us to where we are. So it's tough.
Yeah, exactly. However, at this point in time, I would just say, just a tip: take December off in 2019.
Take December off. It's funny. I asked that question to Jungle Man, and he's like, he had like immediate advice that he would give a carbon copy, but then he's like, no, that they're not going to listen to that. I need to give the exploitative advice to my younger self, so that they would listen to it.
Well, wait, actually, you know what? Damn, man, I actually just should have been like, okay, you need to start raising a whole bunch. Here are these poker charts. Here are these like a gazillion spots that the population is overfolding. Try this check raise. Oh yeah, turn donking, do that.
Turn donking, do that.
Like I would just have, because there's so many spots the population was playing very poorly, under defending the big blind, overfolding the 3 bets, overfolding the C bets, C betting too much, just so many different spots that people were playing bad. They weren't even shoving correctly at all. They were just there were like infinite spots that I could have taken advantage of and made even more money than I did.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I would actually do. I was thinking more along like sage advice,
Yeah,
But
like wisdom,
Yeah.
specific. Yeah, he said he would tell himself to diversify and put money on multiple sites instead of focusing on one so that he could make more money.
Fair.
But if you could gift all poker players one book, what would it be and why? This could also be a piece of poker related content that you feel is worthy as well.
I'm not going to say the traditional like poker super analytical books. I'm going to say Wherever You Go, There You Are by John Kabat-Zinn. As far as if I was to answer this question is like, what do I think is my like the best poker book? Right now, I really like Michael Acevedo's book that I had a lot to do with as far as he's organizing a ton of information from solvers, and there's tons of charts. It's great as a reference book, but it's pretty dense. Some books that really helped me out along the way, and this is not the question you asked, but it's the question I'm answering. I really liked along the way Matthew Jonda's book, Will Tipton's book. The first book I ever read was actually Phil Hellmuth's book.
What is it? Play Poker Like the Pros, I think.
Yeah, where I learned about the elephant, the calling station, and then the jackal, who was like the wild player. And then there was like something who's the rock. I forgot what that animal was. And then there's the eagle, who's above all other players, like Phil Hellmuth. It's pretty much reserved for only Phil Hellmuth. Yeah, that was the first poker book I read. The first poker book that really that gave me a lot of insight, I think, were some of the Sklansky books. I did not really fully answer your question. The answer that I gave, though, was,
I think the John Kabat-Zinn. I like the Buddhist book. Again, it didn't have to be 100% poker related. First poker book that I actually read that resonated with me was Super System, and it was more of giving me a license to be aggressive. Like just talking about aggression in poker was like was mind altering, life altering for me.
I straight up lost money when I started trying to play like that book because it was.
Oh, I didn't play like the book, but it was more like just the concept of like aggression is good. Mm-hmm. Like when I internalized that and applied it at the tables. That was fun for me because, again, like you said, poker's like a puzzle and the pieces come together. And aggression, you can learn a lot from aggression that you otherwise wouldn't learn.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I just remember my story about Super System is that I just remember Doyle Brunson, and I would read it in kind of like a Doyle Brunson voice in my head. And I remember it just being like, and I'll go all in with the gut shot, I'll put them to the test. And so I play these live poker games and be like, I got a gut shot. Okay, I'm going to 4-bet all in with this because Doyle Brunson says so. I got a gut shot. Did not work well for me.
Play the rush. I win 2 hands in a row. I got to play the next 5 hands. I'm not folding until I lose a hand. More Super System wisdom there.
Yes. But no, I mean, the truth is that the ideal tournament player in my mind is I hate the word small ball, but like someone who's constantly attacking, hard to win pots off of. But when the money gets in calling, they tend to have it, or at least they're making smart decisions that way. An attacking aggressive player is the toughest kind of player to play against, I think.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, it's tricky. It's hard. There's a lot of unknowns. All right, next question. If you could erect a billboard leading into either the casino or somebody's poker room where they play cards, what would that billboard say? That they have to drive past or walk past on their way to the felt.
What's my goal here? Am I trying to get people to come in?
You need sage advice, just something that message for folks to internalize.
You got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them. Man, you actually got me stumped on this one. So what you're basically saying is like, what's a message to all poker players? There's more to life than this. So, yeah,
that's a good one. Actually, that's a good one, because as poker players, a lot of times we get our self-worth from our results on the felt, and that can be very very damaging to your personal life, very damaging to your mental health. To say, on days where you win, you're sky high and I'm a winner, and days you lose, saying I'm a loser. Very, very damaging.
Absolutely. A lot of my concept of myself has to do with who I am as a poker player. And I've gotten away from that in the last few years, where most of my friends don't play poker. Some of my friends don't even really know the scope at which I play poker. I mean, I'm certainly not telling, my friends who are working for 15, 20 an hour about my $1 million downswings and stuff.
Yeah.
What I'm going to hear from them is, well, you should have quit while you were ahead. But
you ever thought about just not playing poker?
So I actually, now have a lot of friends who are my friends for me, for my personality, for what I give in that way. And not because I'm some, high stakes poker player that can give them something. And so I've moved away from really identifying with myself as a poker player, although it's still a big part of who I am. And I had a losing year in 2016 where I was still me. I was having a good time. I felt good about myself, for the most part. But underneath it all, I was losing, and I could feel that I was just a little bit in a worse mood all the time. Like it was there.
Yeah. It's hard to lose for a year and stay even keel for any human being.
Yeah, just working and losing. It's just it's not fun.
Yeah, that's got to be very, very, very brutal. You've mentioned your site. What's a project you're working on that's near and dear to your heart?
Near and dear to my heart. Well, the project that I'm working on right now is essentially figuring out population frequencies, and then in almost every spot, and then figuring out like max exploits, and then figuring out min exploits so that I'm not too exploitable. It's a pretty big project.
That sounds very big.
Yeah, and then there's another one with essentially trying to come up with the dream machine. As far as
what's a dream machine?
Essentially, it's like a spreadsheet or program of some kind that can answer any poker question, like within certain constraints. It's not happened yet. I haven't seen one. I believe someone says one exists, but I don't think so. Not for tournaments. As far as life projects go, like you just made me realize I need to get a life project. I mean, mainly I'm just doing service work and working with addicts is what I do for the most part. Some random goals I have. I just want to get back into music. I actually want to get like a scuba diving certificate. Just little stuff like that. But I don't have any. I just got done the big project, and I don't have any other big things on the horizon. I've got got little interests here and there, like, string theory kind of stuff or M theory, and finance a little bit, but I find it pretty dry. No, that's pretty much it.
Nice. I mean, still got a lot on your plate. All the students, all the course, interacting with the community, helping folks, and playing cards. That's a lot.
How about you? What's a project that you have that's really near and dear to your heart other than this podcast?
Oh, you killed it. This is podcast. No, for me, I'm working daily on a course called Home Game Hero that's specifically helping folks crush their local home game. That's the project that takes up the most amount of my time on a daily basis.
Yeah, I guess what happened with me is that it was the blueprint. It was making the blueprint. It's this animated course that was scripted that took a long time to do. So there's kind of a void where that was, and that's a reminder. I usually have a big project. I co-wrote those books, and there's usually something big on the horizon. But right now, I've mainly just been working on, like these huge exploitive things versus the population. Lots of poker stuff, just going in even deeper into my poker stuff. But that question made me realize that my life, I would like a bigger project in my regular life, other than just like personal fitness.
It's tough. It's the nature of goals. A friend of mine's a gold medalist, and I've done a lot of research on Olympians and people that have a massive project and then they complete it, and then they kind of spiral a little bit because they don't have that focus, they don't have that drive, the thing that they're working towards anymore. It's like, oh, I won my gold medal. Now what? Which is, high achievers, man. That's a real issue.
I think that I actually brought that up pretty much earlier.
Yeah, for sure.
I think I said, but yeah, that happens. That happens a lot. Like I accomplished a lot of the goals that I set out to make, and I remember not feeling as good as I thought I would. But this actually helped me one time solving my. I had what I think are anxiety issues, and when I was writing the book, volume 2, I was stuck in a lot of spots, and I just didn't want to write it. So anytime that I was having a good time relaxing, it was like my brain would be like, why are you relaxing? You got this book to stress out about. And I just felt like I could never really just relax or feel good, because in the back of my mind, I had this book. Then I finished it, and I didn't feel that much better. And I realized that my brain just likes to worry about something, to cling on to something, to feel stressed about. And that actually helped me let go of that anxiety, because I realized it's just in there. It's like it's a tool that you can use, sure, but it's not something that is indicative of anything real.
Or that's even going to get resolved based on some sort of accomplishment.
Exactly. I was expecting this huge weight to be lifted, and then it was just like, oh, well, I'm doing that.
What the hell happened? But yeah, I again, part of the human condition, I think. And this is it, man. Final question. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've loved talking to you. Where can the Chasing Poker Greatness audience find you on the interwebs?
You can find me on Twitter, Apestyles. You can find me on pocketfives.com, 2+2. My Skype is Apestyles John Van Fleet. Maxvalue.com. That's MAX-value, VALUE.com. And I'm available for coaching from any of those spots. And also, hopefully you'll check out the Blueprint, the course that I spent all that time on. And I'm pretty available, pretty reachable.
You are the man, sir. Thank you very much for your time and your energy. And loved having you on, and look forward to having you on again sometime in the near future.
Thank you. It was fun.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Chasing Poker Greatness. If you haven't yet subscribed to the show, please take a moment to do so on Apple Podcasts or wherever your favorite place to listen to podcasts may be. And once again, I wanted to let you know about PKC Poker. If you're on the lookout for a new poker platform where the games are safe and secure and the action's amazing, head to enhanceyouredge.com/PKCpod to get your code and jump into the games. You must have a code to play, as well as be 21 years of age or older. One final time, that's enhanceyouredge.com/PKCpod. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time on Chasing Poker Greatness.